Okay, LA Chargers offseason chatter. Let's run it back. Obviously, Chargers, great regular season. They lose in the first round of the Patriots. Kind of a total dud, 16-3 there. Offense does nothing the whole game. The Chargers O-line gets completely blown up as we thought it would, and ultimately the Patriots just find a way to do enough on offense to win that game. So, since that moment in early January, here's what has gone on with the LA Chargers. Bradley Bozeman, the starting center, roll tide roll, proposed to his girlfriend on the field of the Natty. He is retired, folks, after 8 years in the NFL. Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz, really good friends with him and their whole family. He is out as the OC. Mike McDaniel, Gucci shades, Gucci slides and all. He is in as the OC. Jesse Minter, A++ job the last 2 seasons as the Chargers DC. He gets the job as the Baltimore Ravens head coach. Chris O'Leary, former Chargers safeties coach, Western Michigan. Shout out to Kalamazoo. Shout out to the Broncos. He's there DC last year, top 10 in the FBS in defense. Comes in as the new DC for the Chargers this season. A lot of players on the team put out tweets, especially the secondary guys who were close with him, Elijah Molden, Derwin James, etc., lauding the hire. So who's starting at center? What's up with the new defense? Would you go after Tyreek Hill? Mike McDaniel and Tyreek Hill obviously have a working relationship. Quentin Johnston, will they pick up his 5th-year option? They have to decide that on May 1st. Talk about that as well. And then other free agents. Keenan Allen's a free agent. Odafe Oweh, great pass rusher who came over from Baltimore. He's a free agent. Khalil Mack, one of the great pass rushers of his generation, is a free agent. He played last year on a 1-year deal. Will they be able to bring him back with the Tuli Pelotu extension pending? So let's get into all of that right now for the Chargers. First of all, Bradley Bozeman, obviously, struggled last year to say the least, finished 30th among centers in pass block win rate. It was a tough time for the Chargers offensive line last year. Obviously, the Joe Alton, Rashawn Slater injuries really, really hurt. If they have a healthy O-line, I think they can win the Super Bowl. That's a massive if. Tyler Linderbaum, great player out of Iowa, been with the Ravens a couple of years. He's a free agent. He's reportedly been offered a max by Baltimore. So, Joe Ortiz has a relationship with Baltimore, having worked there. He likes to build through the draft. However, Linderbaum being a free agent, someone that they would consider. There are a couple other top free agent centers out there, the Saints center and the Bills center, among others. The highest ranked center in the NFL draft big board that I've seen is Jake Slaughter out of Florida, who's a good player, blocked for Jaden Baugh last year. Obviously, Florida's a program struggled, but he's definitely a good player. It's just that if he's a third-round grade, do you want your starting center for a prime year of Justin Herbert when you feel like you kind of have everything else around him figured out as long as the tackles stay healthy and as long as you get Zion Johnson healthy at guard and generally improved guard play at the right guard spot, which you think Mekhi Becton and Jamari Seller and maybe Trey Pipkins could all combined to be a decent right guard, like 3 guys playing one right guard spot, so long as the tackles and Zion and the new center stay healthy. That being said, do you want a rookie to start at center? Because that's what the Chargers are staring down the barrel of right now. Or do you want to pay someone in free agency? They have $87 million to spend. That's one of the highest amount of open cap spaces in the league. So obviously they can absolutely spend on that. You do have to consider a couple other things. Number one, Keenan Allen, Khalil Mack, Odafe Oweh, Tuli Pelotu. So you have 3 truly elite pass rushers, right, in Odafe Oweh, who came over last year. By the way, Odafe Oweh, 30.5 sacks already. He's not going to turn 28 until basically after this season's over. Dude, he already has 30.5 sacks. I feel like that's a lot for someone who doesn't get talked about. I was looking at his value. He probably will get a 3-year, $60 million-ish deal. So that's kind of what you're staring down if you're the Chargers. I think you pay that in a heartbeat. I think he's that great. And obviously, Khalil Mack's not going to do it for much longer, as great as he is. It seems like he could get 15 sacks a year for another 10 years, but he is obviously getting much older, has flirted with retirement in the past. I'll get an official Khalil Mack age check for you here. So he's going to turn 30. Oh, so he just turned 35. So, obviously not cooked, but and he was good last year for certain, and it feels like he could be good forever because he's a Hall of Famer. But you do wonder if he's going to retire on his own terms, a la Aaron Donald. You want to have that succession plan. Tuli Tuipulotu is that succession plan. He's due for an extension. My Lord, he is one of the very best pass rushers in the world, has consistently led the Chargers in sacks lately. Young man out of USC. They signed him young. That was an amazing draft pick. That was an A-plus draft pick. He is an incredible player. He is going to command a bag. So do you want to pay 3 different pass rushers a lot of money? My answer to that question would be absolutely, with the caveat that Khalil Mack doesn't receive some giant multi-year, 3-year, 4-year extension. If you want to bring him back 2 years, $20 million or something like that, I think that's great. But Odafe being young, 27, Tuli Tuipulotu being even younger than that, those guys are your future cornerstone pass rushers, and I think you're in an amazing position for that. I wouldn't let either of those guys walk at all if you can. The wide receiver room. Couple different topics here. Number one, would you go after Tyreek Hill, who's an impending free agent? My answer would be hell no. I totally understand the relationship with Mike McDaniel. I understand how awesome it was when they hung 70 on the Broncos. I understand that he's the fastest player in the world. He is 31, going to be 32 soon. Obviously, all the off-the-field issues. You see the weird videos of him maybe holding like a baby off a balcony, if that video was real. Just some really kind of sad off-the-field haywire issues going on. Would not touch him with a 30-foot pole. I am good on that. Understand his talent. Understand the Mike McDaniel working relationship, the new OC of the Chargers. I'm good on that. Quentin Johnston, 4th year of his rookie deal, 4 out of 4, but then the team gets the option for the extension next year, the 1-year extension that these first-rounders get. Pretty good value this year, making $4 million. I thought he's improved a ton the last couple of years. Obviously had a shaky rookie season, but he's really, ever since Harbaugh got there, remember he torched Harbaugh's Wolverines when he was at TCU in the college football playoffs in that semifinal. Like, maybe that's just what it took, being like, oh, yeah, dude, I used to torch this coach in college. But whatever it is, and maybe it's Ladd's emergence, so he gets less attention. Obviously, Keenan there, Gadsden's emergence, etc. Like, Quentin's been a lot better. Like, has he looked like an amazing first-rounder? Nah, but you're happy to have him this year on that $4 million hit for sure. And then next year, $18 million. What do you do? Do you give him $18 million for that one final year? You have to decide that by May 1st. So that's the caveat here. The Chargers have to decide by May 1st if they want to exercise that 5th-year deal on Quentin to pick him up for 2027. It would be $18 million for that 1 year. To me, that's a lot. That seems like a lot. It's tough to let the first-round pick walk, but I would say you don't guarantee $18 million next year, and you just see how he plays this year. And if him and Herbert develop a great rapport or continue a great rapport, then you can sign him to a 3-year, however much deal after this year. I would probably hold off on exercising that 5th-year option, just my opinion. Because Keenan still has a little bit of gas left in the tank. Obviously, your best receiver or your leading receiver last year, Ladd McConkey, was a second-year player. Year before that, he had even better stats. He regressed statistically last year, and I think that's kind of the big conversation with the wide receiver room of the Chargers is how do all the pieces fit together? Like, Quentin's the deep threat guy who can also catch and run underneath. Ladd is very much so an elite, short burst, twitchy, change of direction, run 5 yards and stop on a dime kind of player, more of a slot guy. Some people argued his production dropped last year because they made him run more intermediate and downfield throws. I would simply say it's just that Keenan Allen led the team in receptions last year. Herbert was like, oh, we have Keenan Allen back again. That's my favorite receiver I've ever played with. I'm going to throw him the rock. Keenan led the team in receptions with 81 last year. I'll give you the statistical breakdown of the Chargers receiver room last year. So Ladd, 66 grabs, second on the team. 789 yards, first on the team. 6 touchdowns, second on the team. Keenan, 122 targets, 81 grabs, led the team. 4 touchdowns, 777 yards, so basically the same amount of yards as Ladd. Q, 51 grabs, but he was the deep threat, averaged most yards per catch on the team at 14.4. 735 yards, led the team with 8 touchdowns. And then 4th leading receiver, Oronde Gadsden, the rookie tight end out of Syracuse, 49 catches, 664 yards, 3 touchdowns. Trey Harris, rookie at Ole Miss, 30 grabs, 324 yards, and a touchdown. Amarian Hampton, Kamani Vidal, Tyler Conklin, Will Dissly, etc. Uncle Will. No Twitch Will. So that's your rundown. Ronda Gadsden, by the way, was a huge surprise in the best of ways. I believe he was a 5th rounder out of Syracuse, and he ended up being by far the team's best tight end. So that was a big time win for the Bolts and for Herbert there. But I think that's really good that Herbert kind of spread the wealth around like that. 2 years ago when they were playing Houston, that playoff game that I was at, and just in general, you could see it throughout the whole season. It felt like the only player Herbert was comfortable with was Ladd, and that was it. So that's your statistical breakdown of the Chargers receivers from last year. And my biggest thing is like there's a I don't know, narrative maybe. I saw a Chargers writer, Daniel Popper, fantastic writer, covers the team very well, discussing like, does Keenan's presence make it such that Ladd can't develop fully? And I understand the premise of they're both kind of short range receivers. They're both 5 yards and grab the ball receivers, possession receivers, essentially slot guys, whereas Q is much more of a downfield threat, and that's why I think Q is actually really important for the team, along with Gadsden, who emerged as a downfield threat at the tight end spot. But I personally think that if you can keep Keenan Allen on this, last year he signed a 1-year deal valued up to $8 million with a $2.2 million guaranteed amount and $5.2 million cap hit. Like, I mean, dude, for a guy who just grabbed 81 balls for almost 800 yards and 6 touchdowns, that's about as good as value outside of a rookie deal as you're going to find in the league. And Herbert loves Keenan. Herbert especially loves Keenan on 3rd down. So, dude, if you can keep Keenan forever, man. Keep giving him these 1-year, $5-6 million deals. He's obviously made his money already. He's made over 100 M's as an NFL receiver. He loves it in LA. He's a legendary Charger, all-time leader in receptions. They had that big kind of moment for him when that happened last year. So, I would say Herbert loves him. Herbert trusts him on 3rd down. Obviously the running nickname 3rd and Keenan. I would keep him for as long as you possibly can. I don't think it really hampers Ladd McConkey's development personally. I think Ladd will be great no matter what. It's just that statistically he regressed a little bit last year because Keenan was there. He went from 1,000 yards to close to 800 yards, but who cares, man? By the time Ladd's up to or ready to sign a long-year deal or an extension, it'll be 2 years from now, and Keenan will be older, and I think you're still able to give Ladd that money, no problem. They did sign Tier Tart, 3 years, 30-ish million, 36 million, 39 million, something in that range. I think that's fantastic. Tier Tart was really good up the middle of that defense. Honestly, as long as they keep the O-line healthy, they can win the Super Bowl. My only other position group that I'm not in love with is the linebacker spot outside of Diane Henley. It's pretty thin. Troy Dye giving it his all for sure and playing pretty well. Denzel Perryman, kind of in and out some off the field trouble, bit older, but he is a vet guy. But I do think they need to kind of step up the linebacking core. Let me go to the depth chart real quick, just as of right now. Again, that O-line with Slater at left tackle, Zion at left guard. You need to figure out your center. Like I said, you either draft the kid out of Florida or you pay a free agent. Right guard, a little sketchy. You still have Mekhi Becton, Trevor Penning, and Jamari Sawyer. By the way, I was looking at Jamari Sawyer's deal. It's actually insanely team friendly. He's been making $700,000 a year, and his deal's up, so he's a free agent. So it's not like he's going to command a ton of money. He's been a little bit inconsistent, but I think an NFL player. But for as much flack as he's been getting and the whole line's been getting, he's been costing them literally nothing. I mean, he's been playing for $700,000 a year. Last year, he made the bulk of his rookie deal. I think it was $3 million or something, but he's basically been costing them nothing. So you do need to improve that right guard spot and obviously sign a center. But Joe Alt at right tackle and Slater at left tackle, man, that's as good as it gets. I guess I would also say maybe even go out and get a backup tackle. Pipkins and Sawyer were kind of giving it their all last year, but it obviously wasn't pretty enough ultimately. I would go ahead and maybe get a backup tackle. Diane Henley, Perryman, and Mack, that's your linebacking core. I guess they have Owe and Mack as kind of an outside backer spot. So you feel okay about that. And then with Henley and Perryman there, you still have Junior Colson and Troy Dye there. Again, I think that's probably the biggest area of concern is that other linebacker spot besides Diane Henley. But yeah, man, the secondary looks really good. Derwin, Elijah Molden, Cam Hart, Tarheeb Still. They absolutely hit it out of the park with Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still. in the draft. St. Just, RJ Mickens, good backup for Derwin. He had a big pick last year against the Steelers on Sunday Night Football. He seems capable enough, and still in heart, I think you feel really good about St. Just. Sketchy. That's 24, a little sketchy, but yeah, man, that's your overall Chargers rundown. I think you sign all three of those edges. I think you bring back Keenan. Personal opinion, I would absolutely hold off on Tyreek Hill, and I would hold off on giving Q that big fifth-year extension. And then finally, center Linderbaum, if you can get him. Apparently, he's been offered a market-setting center contract spot, so that'll obviously be tough to top if he decides to stay in Baltimore. And then you either draft the kid Jake Slaughter out of Florida, or you go get any one of a couple capable free agent centers, which it looks like Buffalo and New Orleans are at the top of that list, the guys there. So that's your rundown. Oh, I'll do the last thing, the schedule. They don't have the dates out yet. They just have the locations and the opponents. Kind of a tough schedule, man. Not going to lie. Pretty tough schedule. At Buffalo, obviously at Denver, at Kansas City, at Vegas. Then home against Denver, home against Kansas City, home against Vegas. You get the Patriots at home, Jets at home, Cardinals at home, Niners at home. Potential winnable games there, although the Niners are still very good. At Rams, at Miami, at Seattle, by the way, the toughest place to play in the National Football League, at Seattle. That'll be a fun game. Chargers at Seattle, Herbert back in the Northwest. At Baltimore, obviously always a tough place to play, but going into a bit of a transition period for Baltimore. New head coach, bad defense. Lamar maybe not super happy. Might be a transition year for Baltimore there. Houston, my opinion, very best defense in the league, right there with Seattle, maybe even better. You host them, and then at Tampa Bay. So some tough games, man. Some tough games. But boy, if they can re-sign those edges and get the O-line right, I'm super stoked for what Herbert and the Chargers can do. Obviously, Mike McDaniel and Chris O'Leary, the new coordinators, are going to be a massive part of that. You imagine that the Chargers start to take more shots downfield with McDaniel there as the OC instead of Greg Roman running that insanely conservative offense. But it's going to be fun, man. That's your outlook of the Chargers. What do they do at center? We'll see what they do in the draft. It's also maybe not a bad strategy to sign a free agent center and draft one, like draft Slaughter and sign one of these free agents. I'll get the names for you before I get out of here. Popper dropped them in their article. In his article, let's see. Connor McGovern for the Bills, Luke Fortner for the Saints, and Cade Mays for the Panthers are the guys that that the league thinks highly of, who could be free agents of interest for the Chargers there at center. So will they win the Super Bowl? Not going to predict that yet, but there's your Chargers off-season chatter, and let's see how everything goes in the draft coming up here.